Now number 2 video of that only continued of airfoil. Now this is a shapes and dimension of airfoils, in which we will discuss more thing about airfoils. The aspect ratio of an airfoil of rectangular shape is the ratio of the span to the chord. Thus, airfoil A in the figure has a span of 24 feet and a chord of 6 feet, and the aspect ratio is 4. Likewise, airfoil B at the same figure has a span of 36 feet and a chord of 4 feet, and the aspect ratio is 9. This formula for aspect ratio can be written as capital A equals to span by chord. For aerodynamic reason, airfoil has hardly ever designed with a rectangular platform. The aspect ratio for non-rectangular airfoil is defined as the span squared divided by area. If we represent the chord by the letter C, that is small c, and the span by the letter small b, the formula of non-rectangular airfoils can be expressed as capital A equals to small b square by capital S, where S represents the area. The formula for the aspect ratio of a non-rectangular airfoil could be applied to a rectangular airfoil if any such object were in existence. Since capital S is the area, as is a product of the width c, small c, and the length small b, we can write the formula thus: capital A equals to b square divided by c into b. By cancelling, where there is the same value above and below the division line, we have capital A equals to b upon small c. Since small b represents the length or span and small c represents the width or chord, we are back where we started. Now, wingtip vortices. Air flows under the wing or of an airplane as shown in this figure. This produces a region of relatively low pressure above the wing and a region of relatively high pressure under the wing if the airfoil were of infinite span, that is, if it had no ends, the airflow would be direct from the leading edge to the trailing edge, as shown in the figure, because there would be no way for the air in the region of highest pressure before the wing to flow into the region of low pressure above the wing. However, it is obvious that the airfoil is of finite area of end span, that is, it has ends. As the air under the wing will seek the region of low pressure above the wing by spilling over the tips, as shown in this figure. Eddies or regions of turbulence are formed in this manner or at the tips, causing the streamlines to form vortices, which are like little whirlpools, such as shown in this figure. The streamlines below the wing bend towards the tips, and those above the wing bend towards the center. The turbulence thus produced absorbs energy and increases the drag. At the same time, the lift is reduced by destroying the force as the air stream near the tips. Wingtip vortices are unavoidable, but their effect can be reduced by increasing the aspect ratio. Since wingtip vortices exert their influence for a distance inward from the tips in any given airfoil, it is apparent that the percentage of the area so affected is less for a long, narrow airfoil than it is for a short, wide airfoil. This is shown in this figure, which illustrates the area affected by wing tip vortices. The shape in the upper left hand corner of this figure is short and wide. The center shape is long and relatively narrow, and the lower right shape is still longer and narrower. Although the area affected by wing tip vortices remains the same for all these shapes, a smaller proportion of the total area is affected when the airfoil is long and narrow. This is merely another way of saying that increasing the aspect ratio reduces the effect of the wingtip vortices. Now, effects of aspect ratio. The effect of increasing aspect ratio is principally to reduce induced drag for any given coefficient of lift. This, of course, improves the lift by drag ratio. Induced drag is the part that is L by D ratio. Induced drag is that part of the drag caused by the lift, that is drag caused by the change in direction of airflow. The effect then of a higher aspect ratio is to increase the range of an aircraft because there is less drag to overcome. Subject to certain limitation, the most efficient airfoil has the greatest aspect ratio. A true cantilever wing has no external bracing. If it has a high aspect ratio, it is long and narrow. It is obvious that when the length is increased too much, the wing will droop from its own weight. Furthermore, the root section (bracket where it joins the fuselage) bracket close must be of heavy constructions, and this added weight may in itself offset some or all of the given in lift. When a wing reaches a certain length, it requires external bracing, which adds to the weight and causes increased drag. Also, if the wing is too long, a change from cantilever to semi-cantilever in bracket externally braced bracket close construction will not permit an extremely high aspect ratio because of the angle which the struts make between the wing and the fuselage becomes so flat that they do not provide the proper support. Some of the things such as stringer, strut, and these all things which are coming, which we'll discuss in the construction of an aircraft. An increase in aspect ratio means a shorter chord, hence the internal force and aft bracing of the wing is relatively shorter. If weight must be added to give the required strength, some of the gain in lift is lost here. As the span increases, it becomes necessary to have either a longer fuselage or a higher vertical stabilizer to place the tail in a position to provide directional stability and control. This adds to the weight of the airplane, and again there is a possibility where the additional weight may offset the advantages of increasing the aspect ratio. When the aspect ratio is increased, the slope of the curve is steeper. This provides that there are greater changes of lift with changes in the angle of attack, and that the bubble point is reached at the lower angle of attack, then it would be with an airfoil having a lower aspect ratio. All the foregoing consideration led to the conclusion that there is a limit to the practical increase of the aspect ratio. One of the textbook on the theory of the flight states that it's seldom wise to have a value greater than 9 in that it is seldom wise to have a value greater than 9 in conventional airplanes. However, shortly after the book was printed, an airplane was developed that proved very successful in all respects, although it had an aspect ratio of 11.5:1. There is a limit on slow aspect ratio as well as high aspect ratio. Some racing airplanes handle fast, low wing and fighting airplanes have been built with an aspect ratio of 5, and there have been airplanes with an aspect ratio as low as 4. A low aspect ratio permits better control in landing because the stall is less abrupt. Also, at low angle of attack, in bracket at high speed, is low aspect ratio does not result in an important increase of drag because the air pressure acting on the wing is more uniform, and although it decreases toward the trailing edge, the difference between pressure near the leading edge and that near the trailing edge is less than 1. Then it is at high angles of attack. Consequently, it is not important to have a large proportions of the wing area near the leading edge under these circumstances. It is increasing to observe that the NACA report 460 mentioned previously presents the results for infinite aspect ratio and for an aspect ratio of 6. Some of the most widely used modern light airplanes have an aspect ratio that is close to 7. It is impossible to make any sweeping statement about aspect ratio that will apply to airplane in general because the selection of aspect ratio depends upon so many other factors. Now, taper. The root section of an airfoil is the inboard section. In this case of a wing, it is either the section of the center line of the airplane or the section of the fuselage, depending upon how the wing is attached. The tip section of an airfoil is the outboard section. An airfoil is tapered when one or more of its dimension gradually decreases from the root to the tip. When the airfoil decreases from root to the tip in both thickness and chord, the airfoil is said to have taper in plan and thickness. This is shown in the bottom drawing given in this figure. If the thickness and chord remain the same from the root to the tip, there is no taper. When there is a gradual change, bracket usually a decrease, bracket close, in the chord length along the wing span from the root to the tip, with the wing section remaining geometrically similar, the airfoil is said to have taper in plan only, as shown in the upper right hand of the figure which I had given earlier. When there is a gradual change in the thickness ratio along the wingspan with the chord remaining constant, the airfoil is said to have taper in thickness ratio only, as shown in the middle drawing of the figure. There is fourth form of taper which is seldom mentioned in text of the theory of flight. In this form, the section at any point along the span has no simple direct relation to the root section. In other words, there is a constant change in the shape of airfoil from the root to the tip. Examination given to technicians and pilots usually require a knowledge of only the first 3 kinds of taper, but it is well also to know about the 4th kind. When a wing is tapered in thickness in such a manner that the thickness near the tip is 60% of the thickness at the root and is compared with an airfoil of constant section in bracket not tapered equal to the mean or in bracket average section of the tapered section, the following characteristics are observed on certain airfoil. Number 1, the CP moves less for changes in angle of attack. Number 2, the maximum C small l below that is coefficient of lift is greater, and the peak of the characteristic curve is flatter because all the wing does not attain the maximum coefficient of lift, that is C capital small l below. At the same time, that is each section reaches its maximum coefficient of lift at a different angle of attack from any other section. Number 3, the coefficient of drag. values are lower, the most noticeable decrease being at the low angle of attack. Number 4, the maximum lift by drag ratio is greater, and the values of lift by drag ratio are larger at small angles of attack. It is interesting to note that the tapered wing may also have constantly changing airfoil section from the root of the wing to the tip. When a wing is tapered in plan form and is compared with a rectangular airfoil having an equivalent aspect ratio, the following characteristics are observed on certain airfoils. Now, number 1, the CPU moves more for changes in angle of attack. Number 2, there is greater maximum coefficient of lift. Number 3, there are lower values of coefficient of drag, especially at low angles of attack. Number 4, the lift by drag ratio is greater throughout the flight range, especially at the higher angle of attack. When a wing or any airfoil is tapered in both thickness and plan form, it is possible to take advantage of the best aerodynamic features of the airfoil tapered in thickness only and the airfoil tapered in plan form only. When the distribution of the area of a tapered wing places, the resultant force near the center line, it may be possible to build a wing of relatively light weight having the thicker, heavier and stronger portions near the root, where the greatest stresses normally occur. On the other hand, in a tapered airfoil, the same spars may be tapered and different jigs must be used for building the ribs. For this reason, the construction of the wing tapered in both plan form and thickness becomes considerably most costly than the construction of other types of wing. Now, airfoil selection. The selection of best airfoil for an airplane requires a careful consideration of the many factors that may conflict with one another, with the result that the final decision is usually a compromise. Some important factors to be considered in airfoil selections are: number 1, airfoil characteristic; number 2, airfoil dimensions; number 3, facility of airfoil about the facility of airflow about the airfoil; number 4, the speed at which the aircraft is designed to operate; and number 5, flight operating limitations. Now, what is mean aerodynamic chord? These all things which I have given you till now is very important to understand. The mean aerodynamic chord is also an important, in bracket capital MASC, is the chord of an imaginary rectangular airfoil that would have pitching moments or force vectors throughout the flight range identical with those of an actual wing or combination of wings under consideration. The capital MASC must not be confused with the mean chord of a wing, which is merely the quotient obtained by dividing the wing area by the span. When the capital MASC is a non-tapered monoplane wing is not known, it can be assumed to be the same as the actual chord, and the leading edge of the wing can be regarded as the leading edge of the MASC. Now I am giving you a figure which represents a biplane with a wing of unequal chords. One line is drawn connecting the leading edges, another line connecting the trailing edges of the airfoil. If the upper wing is known to carry 2/3 of the load carried by the entire combination, the MASC is located at a vertical distance of 1/3 the gap distance from the chord of the upper wing. Its trailing edge is on the line connecting the trailing edges of the upper and lower wings, and the leading edge is on the line connecting the leading edges of the wing. Also, if a line is drawn connecting the CP of the two wings, the CP of the imaginary airfoil drawn around the MSC is the same line, is on the same line. Now I'm giving you, the figure which I had given earlier. The lift of the upper wing is represented by an arrow, and the lift of the lower wing is also represented by an arrow. Both arrows originating in the CP of their respective airfoils. An arrow drawn upward from the CP of the imaginary airfoil based upon the MSC will represent the resultant lift, that is the lift obtained by the combination of the two airfoils. The MSC having been found, certain corrections are made in the figures, and then the combination of the two airfoils can be regarded as the single airfoil of a monoplane. It must be understood that in the discussion of this figure is given only an attempt to simplify what is in reality a very complicated and highly technical subject. The figures applying would not hold true under certain conditions, and they cannot be used as a rule of thumb procedure in every case. The MSC of a biplane with a rectangular or moderately staggered arrangement or non-tapered wings can be determined approximately according to the method stated in this figure which I am giving you, where the MSC is located 25% of the gap distance below the chord of the upper wing. Obviously, it is also 75% of the gap distance above the chord of the lower wing. The position of the MSC have been found, its length can be measured. The position of the center of gravity in bracket CG of an airplane is often expressed as a percentage of the MSC. For example, the specification for a certain airplane may show that the CG must lie between 28 and 34% of the MSC. This means that the forward limit for the CG is 28% of the MSC and the rearward limit is 34% of the MSC. If the technician is working a problem to determine the location of the CG, it is obviously necessary to know the location of the MSC. Now, airfoils on biplanes. Biplanes pressure interference. Even though it is recognized that the biplane type of airplane is not used and extensively today as it has been in the past, still there are many such airplanes in operation, and it is important for the technician to understand some of the details of construction and the aerodynamic characteristic of such aircraft. For this reason, we shall discuss the aerodynamic characteristic of biplanes and point but some of the special features when the air flow over and under the wing of the biplane. There is decreased pressure above the wing and increased pressure below. The region of high pressure seeks the region of low pressure, but these two regions can merge only at the tips and at the trailing edge. If the upper and lower wings of the biplanes were for enough apart, the airflow would be the same for each of the two wings of the biplane as it would be the wings of the monoplane, disregarding the effect of the struts connecting the wings of the biplane. In actual practice, however, the wings of the biplane are so close together that the interference of the streamline reduces the comparatively low pressure on the upper surface of the lower wing, because air always attempts to flow from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. The lift of both wings is therefore reduced, but the lowest wing loses more lift than the upper wing, and the loss is so great that a biplane is usually less efficient than a monoplane having an equivalent wing area. In general, the greater the distance between the wing of an biplane, the smaller is the loss of lift due to the interplane interference. The inverse is also true, that is, the closer the wings are together, the greater will be the interplane interference. The gap by chord ratio, stagger and decalage are all involved in interplane interference. Now gap by chord ratio. Gap is the distance between the leading edge of the upper and lower wings of a biplane as shown in this figure. And is measured perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the airplane. Gap is sometimes defined as the distance separating two adjacent wings of a multiplane. These definitions means the same thing. The chord has been defined and explained before in the text in addition to other definitions. It may be defined as the straight line tangent to the lower surface of the airfoil at 2 points, or as the straight line between the trailing edge and the imaginary perpendicular line at the leading edge. The chord is indicated in this figure. Instead of the gap of a biplane, it is customary to give a gap by chord ratio. If the gap by chord ratio is 1, it means that the gap and the chord have the same length. In practice, the gap by chord ratio is usually close to 1. The principal determining factor for the gap by chord ratio is the interplane interference. The upper and lower wings should be as near to each other as possible, and yet still be far enough apart so that the interplane interference is kept at a minimum. Now, gap by span ratio. Some textbook on aerodynamics mention the gap by span ratio. This is the ratio of the gap to the span, but the gap is always much less than the span, as the ratio is always less than 1. Gap by span ratio is also defined as the ratio of the gap between two superimposed surfaces to the span of the surfaces. Now stagger. Stagger is the technically defined as the difference in the longitudinal position of the axis of two wings of an airplane. In simple words, stagger is the amount the leading edge of one wing of a biplane is ahead of the leading edge of the outer wing. Stagger is also used to define the distance of one compressor stator blade ahead of another, and also the distance of one rotor of a tandem rotor helicopter ahead of the other. The upper biplane is figure which I am giving you has a positive stagger because the leading edge of the upper wing is ahead of the leading edge of the lower wing. The lower biplane of the figure has a negative stagger because of the leading edge of the upper wing is behind the leading edge of the lower wing. Stagger is expressed in inches, percentage of the chord length, or degrees. Stagger is expressed in a degree. A line is drawn between the leading edge and the angle that is this line makes with a line drawn perpendicular to the chord of the upper wing is the angle of stagger. For example, in this figure, the angle formed by a line connecting the leading edges of the wing and the line drawn perpendicular to the chord of the upper wing is 23 degrees. Since the leading edge of the upper wing is ahead of the leading edge of the lower wing, we can say that there are 23-degree positive stagger. The aerodynamic advantages of stagger are small. A biplane may have stagger to improve the vision of the pilot, provide better access to the cockpit, or provide better angles of fire or machine guns. Since biplanes are no longer used for combat, the last reason is historical rather than practical today. In some types of biplanes, when the positive stagger is increased, the pilot can see better for better forward and downward.